Hey everyone, it's Steve from the garden. In this video, I'm going to be fertilizing my onion seedlings for the first time. And to do that, I'm going to use a combination of some blood meal and some worm casting extract. Now, I realize not everybody has access to worm castings, but you could use some finished compost or some leaf mold to do the same thing. Some other alternatives is just to use something like blood meal or like another organic fertilizer that's similar to that. You could also use a chemical fertilizer if you're not opposed to doing that. Just use one that's high in nitrogen, but use it at 1/4 strength. Here are the things I'm going to need. So I have one container. I have distilled water. This was distilled for a couple days, so it's also room temperature. Now, if you have rainwater, that'd be ideal. Here in the Chicagoland area, it's wintertime, so all the water outside is frozen. I have some unsulfured molasses. Now, this is what I'm going to use to hold the worm castings. This is some Agribon 15. I just cut off the end piece of some roll cover. Some alternatives to this would be some insect screen, fine mesh bag, old nylons, or some very cheap ones. Anything that can hold the worm castings or compost or leaf mold that you have without it going through, but still lets water and air get through it. I got my worm castings, which come from my worm bin. I have a pipe that I can use to sit on top of the container to hold the bag. Now I'm going to use a piece of wire that I had laying around. That's what I'm going to tie around the pipe to hold the bag. A twist tie that closes this thing up. Then I have an air pump with some air stones. To get started, I'm just going to go ahead and put the worm castings inside the Agribon 15 here. Now I am using a 10 by 20 tray just to help contain any mess, which is good because I just spilled some. Looks like I could have made this thing a little bit bigger. This is where nylons would be really nice because they already are in a good shape for that. So just put a twist tie on here. Hold that in place. And I can wrap some of this wire around it. So the next step is I'm going to put like 1 tablespoon of molasses into this container first. That way when I pour the water in, it'll help kind of mix it up. Since I'm only using 1 gallon, I only need 1 tablespoon. And that's just to give the bacteria and all that something to eat while I kind of percolate it overnight. So I'll go ahead and just put 1 tablespoon in here. All right, so now I can just pour the water, trying to hit that molasses as much as possible. Again, to get it all mixed in real nicely. So with that in, I'm just using something to kind of stir that together. Again, to make sure that molasses gets mixed in and off the just sitting on the bottom. Okay, with that mixed in, I'm just gonna put the worm casting, or put the bag with the worm castings in and kind of soak it a little bit, give it a little bit of squeeze to kind of get things started. Where I can really smell that molasses coming through pretty strong. So with that part done, now I can just wrap a pipe around it, or wrap the wire around the pipe, and that way the bag is fully submerged inside the water. Yeah, that's about a shot. You can see the bag's fully in the water. Okay, I got this set up on my little shelf here, so I'm going to just drop these air stones in. That way they can start bubbling there. Now the one tube's a little bit longer, so it's able to go down pretty close to the bottom. The other one's a little bit shorter, so it won't be quite at the bottom, but close enough. With the worm tea extract started, we'll come back tomorrow once this is done, and then we'll go on to actually fertilizing the onions, and we'll see what they look like at that point. It's the next day, and we're ready to actually fertilize the onions. So I filled up my little watering bottle with the worm castings extract that we made, and we're ready to get started. So let's take a look at the onions and see where they're at right now. As we look through them, these are the candies over on the left. Then we get into the Pattersons, And then finally into the yellow sweet Spanish onions. So like here, these are the Pattersons, and you can see there's kind of a gap in here. You know, I got a couple plants in single cells here, but then there's several cells with nothing in it. And that's true of, you know, I got some stuff like that going on with the candy onions, and a couple spots like that in the yellow Spanish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the doubles out, and I'll transplant them into these empty cells. So for example, like this cell back here, it's got 2 plants in it. So I'm going to leave the one that's more in the center, and I'll take out the one that's more toward the edge. You can see that root system we got going on there. You can look how long that is already. So then I'll just create a hole here. We'll drop that in. I'm just going to use a popsicle stick to kind of get that in there more. And then move the seed starting mix around it. And I'll go through and I'll do that to fill the other gaps. Now I also see I have 1 weed in here. So that must have been in the seed starting mix. So we don't need a weed, so we can go and throw that away. I have all the blank spots filled with transplants, and I went through and thinned out all the remaining cells that had 2 plants in them. So now every cell only has 1 plant. So the next step now will be, I'm going to use some blood meal, and I'll sprinkle this lightly over the tray. Blood meal will act as a slow release fertilizer, and then our worm casting extract will act as a quicker little fertilizer. But more importantly, what it does is it's going to add some biology to the soil. Okay, with the blood meal in, I'll just use our extract and water all of that in. That way the soil life that's in here can start breaking down the blood meal, and then the worm casting extract can add some more biology to it. Because the seed starting mix by itself should be relatively sterile, and the plants will need the biology to help feed nutrients to them. All the watering is done now with that extract. So now I'm going to put it back on my grow shelf underneath the lights, and we'll check back in a week or so and see if we notice any difference. It's been a week since we fertilized onions, so let's go and take a look. This is how they look now. And I'll bring you in for a closer look so you can get a little more detail on there. Starting with the candy onions. Now I'm not sure how well the camera picks this up, but the plants are definitely much taller now, and they have a nice good green color to them. So that's the candies, and these are the Pattersons. And over here are the yellow sweet Spanish. I'll fertilize the onions again in about a month, which would be about mid-February. And we'll be able to check back in and see how they're doing. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed, got something out of this, and we'll see you on the next one.